And we're live. Hello, and welcome to another Microsoft Developer session with myself, Ben, and we're doing this for July IoT, and I'll be hosting this session today with my good friend Sweeky. Hey, Sweeky, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. It's so early here, but I'm good.
Yeah, it's pretty late here. I'm here in the UK.
I'm in San Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah, awesome. So we're going to be covering developing an Azure IoT Hub app using Xamarin. But first, before we do that, let's, for anyone who hasn't heard of you, tell us a little bit about yourself, Sweeky.
Hey, I'm Sweeky. I work with Ben. We're going to introduce ourselves again in a couple of seconds. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now.
Cool, okay. So let's go to the slides and you'll see the intro slides.
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to start. So come on, PowerPoint. All right. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone here. Meet everyone. So I'm, like Ben said, Ben and I, we're on the mobile customer advisory team. I'll let Ben introduce himself, but I'm Sweeky. Nice to meet you all. Very excited to talk to everyone about Xamarin. Very excited to talk to everyone about IoT Hub. And yep, so I'll be hanging around. We'll both be on the chat, so please feel free to ask us questions. And yep, I'm going to throw it over to Ben to introduce himself.
Yep. Hey, so my name's Ben Buttigieg. I'm on the MobCAT team with Sweeky. Been at Microsoft for just over 4 years now, developing apps for all sorts of enterprise companies. Before that, I was at Nokia for over 10 years, and now over 20 years, believe it or not, dev experience. So yeah, really looking forward to doing this. Had a lot of fun preparing for this session. So yeah, let's take it away.
Cool. Okay, so let's quickly go over what we're planning to cover today. So the idea is we're going to help and explain everyone how to create a Xamarin app. This Xamarin app is what is going to connect to IoT Hub. So we're going to work through how that process looks like. We are going to see how automatic device provisioning works. So all big words, we'll be breaking them down, explaining what all of this means in a few minutes. And the last portion is we'll look at how to display all the data that's coming from our client app, that's Xamarin app today, the mobile app. And we're going to learn and see how to display that on a Power BI dashboard with a map. And of course, please use all of the knowledge we're sharing today to join us in our plan of world domination. So let's get started. So what is Azure IoT Hub? So if you've come here, you are probably you have some idea or have heard of the words of Azure IoT Hub. So what exactly is Azure IoT Hub? It's basically a service that's provided by Azure, and it is basically kind of like a central hub that handles a lot of different things for all your sort of devices which are smart or are controlled via IoT. So think of it as a hub that sort of helps you manage provisioning and controlling different devices on your system, helps you in sort of being like a dashboard where you can see how messages are coming through, how if the device is acting up or having issues and things like that. So it's like a one-stop shop for everything and anything to do with IoT. So the question comes up though, why would we want to use Azure IoT Hub, right? Because we could have easily created this sort of flow that we're working with today with we could do a similar flow, say using an Azure function, an Azure table, and maybe an Azure app service, and sort of host a website to do it. So what exactly is the advantage of using or doing it with IoT Hub? So first off, it is July IoT, so why not use IoT Hub? But apart from that, like I mentioned, so this is a service that's hosted in Azure, right? So they handle a lot of the annoying, and provide us with a lot of cool, features as they host the service. So first off, it is scalable. So if you start with something that's as simple today as, a mobile app, which we are sharing between say 5 or 6 people, you can, and tomorrow say I want to make this my Pokemon Go and I want to share it with 100,000 people. So, scaling it up is super easy with using Azure IoT Hub. It's secure. Messaging, all of your data going up and down is secure. It is stored in a secure service, which is obviously a good plus point. Message routing and telemetry. So we'll look at the dashboard in a bit, but you'll see that it offers a ton of default built-in telemetry, so just basic information to get started with, like, are messages coming in or out, is the service getting hit in or out, and you can also set up custom telemetry for your IoT Hub. So if you want to just like monitor for like outages or downtimes, or if some particular device is editing out, you can always set up custom telemetry also, and it's all already built in. It's just a matter of setting up maybe just a simple query, or setting up how or what kind of data you wanted to filter for. The last 2 points, I know that I have them at the end, but they're actually the major plus points for us wanting to use Azure IoT Hub for this sort of solution. First off, it integrates with other Azure services really well. So if you're already an Azure shop, you're already using other Azure services, you can always add in Azure function. You can always add in Azure tables. You can always add in blob storage to do more things. But at least the initial headache of having to manage provisioning of devices, having to manage a system that listens to incoming messages and stuff like that. So it works really well. And in today's demo, we'll actually be connecting 2 different services. We'll be using Stream Analytics and Power BI to create a dashboard. So you'll see how easily they play with each other. And next up is the Azure IoT SDK itself. It's super easy to plug and play. So if you're a .NET shop and you already are using C#, you'll find like the Azure IoT SDKs work really well with the Xamarin App or any other C# app that you're trying to build. Of course, the Azure IoT SDKs also exist in other languages, but today we'll be focusing on the .NET C# version of it. So next up, the other half of today's title says Xamarin. What exactly is Xamarin? For those who are new or are coming and hearing about Xamarin and C# mobile app development, basically, so .NET now is a platform that you can build anything for, and the framework that allows you to build .NET for mobile is Xamarin. So it's basically an open source platform. It helps you write C# code and create cross-platform apps for iOS and Android. And we also support macOS, watchOS, and tvOS. For today's demo, we'll be focusing on using Xamarin for iOS and Android development only. So we are using Xamarin. So we're using what's called Xamarin Forms. So basically, that's our cross-platform API solution for this. So what it allows you to do is you'll be writing Xamarin Forms code in C# and XAML is what we'll be using to write the front end. And all of your code is shared. It is a shared code basis. You'll be sharing UI code, you'll be sharing the logic code, and we'll be explaining how we have our particular project structure today. So we're also sharing a lot of our, shared like the business logic. We'll call it business logic for today, but basically it just means the logic that's driving the main purpose of the app, which for today is actually grabbing our location. And the other shared logic that we have is the service that talks to IoT Hub. But yes, we have, so that's what the shared C# code is. So basically what happens magically is we'll be writing all of the shared code and we will automatically get an iOS and an Android app. Just so drilling into what the advantage, like why we're using Xamarin, or the cool thing about using Xamarin is, so it's a shared, so it's like I said, so like it's all in C#, so you get all of the .NET goodness, but you also get to tap into certain native things. So like geolocation is what we're using today. So you have access to shared .NET stuff. You also have access to native, bits on each mobile platform. So let's come to what we're building today. So what we're building today from a high-level perspective is we're going to have the client app. That's our Xamarin Forms app, which is going to be talking to 2 services, the Azure IoT Hub, and also talking to device provisioning. So if you caught my stream on Tuesday, I manually provisioned my Raspberry Pi to talk to my Azure IoT Hub. But today we'll be seeing how auto provisioning works and how you can automatically provision your devices to join in to Azure IoT Hub. You don't have to do the manual setup anymore. Once we have that bit working, all of the messages that we'll be sending from the Xamarin app to Azure IoT, we learn how to. So we're going to be using Stream Analytics and Power BI dashboard to create a live dashboard. So that basically means is as and when data flows through to Azure IoT Hub, we will have it populate our map on the Power BI dashboard. As opposed to a different kind of flow, which is also possible, is kind of what I demonstrated on Tuesday, where you can have a similar sort of flow. You can have your client, so that can be a mobile app or it can be a Raspberry Pi. And I triggered a logic-based action, so it wasn't a continuous stream of data flowing through, but based on a particular trigger, it was sending out a tweet. So you could also have a similar sort of setup. So based on whatever you're trying to do. Today, we're going to look at how to get a live Power BI dashboard working. So what it's going to look like right now. So as we get started, we're going to start with our very starter basic version of the app. Isn't that an amazing UI, Ben? I think you did a great job with our starter UI. I love it. It's it's all of the data. So basically, you're going to start with this default, let's call it default. We're going to start with this bare bones Xamarin app, which is getting the device's geolocation. We are going to be learning how from the local device that has a device location, we're going to learn how to send that out to Azure IoT Hub. And the end of today, our grand plan is we're going to have this beautiful looking Xamarin app, which is have a map component, which is have a little bit of animation. We're going to learn how to get the location from here and put it on the map. And therefore, this will turn into what we are calling Zamtrack, or a poor person's Pokemon Go, or just basically an app. So us as teammates, all the dots on the map is going to be all of us teammates. Basically, we all know where each of us is at any time of the day because we all love each other. Really? Okay, so starting off, like I said, we're going to start with the Xamarin app. We're going to hook it up to Azure IoT Hub. So just so it's not too much of information overload, when we open up the solution, this is what the project looks like in rectangles. So in rectangles, the main app is your Zamtrack app. We're calling it Zamtrack. It's tracking location. So we have three, you'll see, so the three major areas is, of course, the Android and the iOS project. So that's what generates the mobile apps for one for Android, one for iOS. Within each native platform, the only, when we say native, it just means something that's like not, it's technically a shared component, but there's just like a little bit of setup you need to do separately per platform. So we'll be looking, so there's a little bit of extra setup for Google Maps to work and Apple Maps to work for iOS and Android. But we're not going to be like going too deep into this because the starter application is sort of like already there. Next up, we have Zamtrack Core. And in this core project is where all the awesome fun stuff lies. So this has the services that I was talking about. So it has the IoT Hub interface, which Ben is going to show how we can connect that to IoT Hub. We're going to learn how the device provisioning stuff works. And we're going to look at the geolocation that's grabbing the location, the latitude and longitude value for each device, right? So another couple of things about the Xamarin app. So there's a couple of dependencies that we have that I just wanted to highlight before we jump into the meat of things. So the first off is Xamarin Essentials. So Xamarin Essentials is basically cross-platform APIs. This comes when you do file new Xamarin Forms project, this comes built in for you. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is, like I mentioned, location is something that's a little native per platform. So what Xamarin Essentials does for you is actually handles all of that already by default. So it just gives you so we are going to be using the geolocation API that's in Xamarin Essentials. So it's really easy to get started. We're not writing any custom complicated code. We just have a NuGet package that we add, and it has geolocation already built in for us. It's amazing. It's super awesome. And the next thing that we're doing is, it's a concept that, again, Ben will also highlight, and will make a lot more sense, I think, when you look at it in code. But if you're someone who likes visual cues on how things work, we have built, so Xamarin, the Xamarin app that we built, it's based on a pattern called model view model. So you see the words view model in the app. And what that you see a model in the app also. So basically, what that means is, so it's kind of similar to what, if you're familiar with MVC, model view controller. This is another type of pattern called model view model. And the way that works is, this is just the way the Xamarin architecture also is set up. So your view is the app. So everything that you see on the screen, that's your view. We have what's called a view model file. So that is what contains what we call data bindings. So data bindings, in very simple words, is something just that drives the data that gets displayed on the screen. That's all it does. So it just basically tells the UI, okay, I've got new data, please refresh yourself. Or, hey, someone clicked a button, go do this command. So that's the purpose of the view model. And the model itself basically is the data object type. So it's for today's, if you were doing suppose it's a to-do list app, the model would be the list item. So like your actual to-do item, that would be a model. The view model in a to-do list app would basically just be the ones that's controlling, oh, there's an event to add a list, and it's the view model that will drive refreshing the list when you add a new item. And the view is the beautiful view itself. So we'll be walking through, like I said, we'll start with that basic looking app, and we'll show you how to make it look beautiful. And we'll also display those points on Power BI dashboard today. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the Xamarin, on the core project, the Xamtrack core project, because like I said, that is, so the way we structured the project today, the idea is all of the logic lives in the core project. So the idea is you can technically take this core project and connect it to any sort of client. So you could connect it to a console app. For today, we're connecting it to a Xamarin app. The reason we're saying this is because we've isolated all of the services that you would need to drive a view in the core project. So we have, based off that starter project that I just showed you, it already has, the geolocation stuff in there, and it has, the initial configuration stuff in there. So we will start off with focusing purely on how to connect that project to IoT Hub. And that's where that's going to be the meat of the focus today. And the rest of the stuff we will touch upon based on time, but idea being all that stuff is like pre-configured, and that is why as the app starts up right now, it's already pulling in the geolocation service. But just to remind everyone, we didn't do too many fancy things. It was Xamarin Essentials that handles all of it for us, because Xamarin is awesome. Okay. So this is, I just wanted to put this slide up there, just Ben is going to go through this whole process and show you the amazing cool stuff that he's implemented. But just in high level stuff, when I said we're going to focus on this client service, this device client service, the idea being we're just going to look at how to connect it to IoT Hub, how to disconnect from IoT Hub, how to check connection status, because that's one of the data that we like to display on the screen. Send event async is again very similar to like if we were using this core project for the Raspberry Pi. And again, I'm going to call back to my session on Tuesday, because this is the exact same event that I use for the Raspberry Pi code to send a message to IoT Hub. So this is what we mean by this core project, and in theory be repurposed for any sort of client interface. So it can be a button on a Raspberry Pi board, or it can be a console app, or it can be the Xamarin app we're building today. So this is what the boxes look like if you like boxes. But if you want to see real code, let's get into code. Ben, do you want to get started? Do you want to show everyone the Xamarin app?
Yes, that was awesome, Sweeky. Thanks for that. So yeah, over to me. So I'm going to show you my coding screen, and hopefully if this works, yeah, beautiful. So yeah, Sweeky's done a great summary of what we're planning to do today during this session. We're creating a Xamarin app, Xamarin Forms app, which connects to IoT Hub and follows the MVVM pattern, uses some off-the-shelf components like Xamarin Essentials and Tiny MVVM. And so what we're starting off with here is the solutions structured exactly as described in Sweeky's slides. So we've got our core project, which has all our services and our main view model. And we have all of the services here are defined through interfaces, so they're exposed through interfaces so that we can mock them out in unit tests, and we can instantiate them and inject them into other services as they get used. So it's a really good pattern to follow because it keeps your nice clean separation of concerns, and yeah, it just really makes the code extensible and easily to maintain. So that's highly very important architectural practice to follow. So I'll just show you some of the existing interfaces which have been implemented. They're super simple, but it gives you an idea. So we have an app config service which literally just pulls in important keys and tokens that are used during the device provisioning process. So anything that we wouldn't want baked into the application code, this will actually get loaded in from app config JSON here. So you can see here the secret that would get loaded in. So the point is that the service will, that data doesn't actually get stored in source control. It gets loaded at stealing it. You got it. Lachlan's got it. It's fine. We'll be killing this service at the end of this demo anyway. So yeah, that's fine. So yes, secondly, we've got the device info service, which literally is just an abstraction over Xamarin Essentials. So Xamarin Essentials provides all this information that we're pulling out. So device model information, device name, and a device ID. Yes, so I can, if there's time, I can show you the implementations of these, but they're literally just wrapping up the existing Xamarin Essentials service, as does the geolocation service. So here we have effectively a wrapper for the geolocation service, which also throws a location update event handler just to update the view model as locations are retrieved. So this is just slightly extends the existing geolocation service that you get with Xamarin Essentials. And finally, we have the important one, which is our device client service, which is provides all the functionality for connecting to IoT Hub. That includes device provisioning and actually connecting to the hub and sending the messages. So yes, Sweeky briefly went through these methods, which we will be implementing on this class. So as you can see here, we start with an empty IoT device client service, and we'll obviously want to implement the interface. So first thing we'll do is, there we go. So we want to implement that interface. So I'll be using loads of refactoring tools to help populate. So this instantly stubs out that interface. So it's literally just doing an implementation, stubbed out implementation of that interface. So you can see here we need last known status. So literally all that is, it's just simply a property, a public property that will be exposing to the view model which uses it. It's probably worth just touching on the view model just briefly, just so we have some context. So we have in this core project the actual view model, which, as Sweeky described, provides the bindings to the UI. So it's basically the glue between the services, the models, and the UI. So it does change notifications, and we've got a bunch of properties, stuff like message text, so that you can type your text. We're exposing the device ID to the UI, city, connected state, some button text. So you can see those are just string properties that are exposed into the UI. And then we're using, through injection, when we create this view model, all of these services, all of these interfaces get injected through tiny IOC. So we don't have to worry about creating them inline in place. They will, through the magic of IOC, that they'll get injected in, or dependency injection. Yep.
Yeah, IOC being, what does IOC stand for?
Inversion of control.
There we go. That's what IOC stands for. Yeah.
Yes. In this case, we're actually using dependency injection because we're injecting these services into the constructor. So this is constructor-based dependency injection. So just briefly, I'm conscious of time, just wanted to show you a few more things in the service, in the view model, just to make it clear what's actually happening. So when we tap on the Start Tracking button, we will kick off a timer, and that timer will first of all try and connect to, before we kick off the timer, we'll actually try and connect to the service. So and then once the timer has every 5 seconds, I think I set it to, you can see we have a timer period. There we go, timer period of 5,000 milliseconds, which is 5 seconds. We'll be calling into that IoT service that we're now implementing to send messages. And those messages will basically, let me just show you the contents of those messages. They're basically the location type, so I'm just extending the location type. And adding some extra properties, just which I'll serialize this entire model and send that as a message. So moving on. So yes, as I said, the key important thing is that we need to implement our connection. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we'll need to call the provisioning service. So the DPS, the device provisioning service, that allows you to because normally, in order to provision a device or register a device, you'd have to do it manually without the benefits of the DPS service. So this is a way to allow your devices to be arbitrarily registered as long as they have access to some security token. So in our case, we're using the asymmetric keys.
Right.
But
also, like, I wanted to ask a question about the DPS service. Like, what do you think is the advantage of like doing it? So when I was doing it, I did it manually because I had just like one, small Raspberry Pi device just for myself. So what do you think, like, why did we not go with the approach of just manually provisioning 2 of our devices, as opposed to, why do you think, what's the good advantage of using this DPS to do it automatically?
Yeah, super good question. So the reason for that is it's obviously easy to just register your personal Raspberry Pi or my
mobile device
or your mobile device, if you know that. But if you want to scale this up to thousands or tens of thousands or even millions of devices, then manually registering each one of those devices on the IoT Hub and giving them permission to communicate with that hub is obviously quite a lot of work. So the DPS automates that process and basically allows them access to and provisions those devices, registers them on the hub and says, yep, you're allowed. Here's the endpoint. Here's your IoT Hub endpoint that you'll need to connect to in order to communicate with the hub.
Awesome. So this is secure and it helps you provision a gazillion different devices. So in our plan of world domination to make our poor person's Pokemon Go.
Pokemon, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is a great decision.
This will scale to millions. Yeah, we'll have millions of users, and
that's awesome. So awesome.
So let's get this connection async working. So the first thing we'll want to do is, you'll see I'm using snippets to help avoid you having the pain of watching me type. So yeah, the first thing we'll want to do is provision the device. So we'll need to create a method to provision. So I'm going to create a private method to provision the device. So there's 4 key bits of information that we need. We need the DPS global endpoint. So this is, as the name implies, this is a global endpoint for all devices that wish to connect to the DPS. So the value is actually static, essentially. I'll need to resolve this service. In fact, before I do that, I'll need to make sure I create the constructor. So I've just jumped ahead a little bit here. So yeah, first of all, we'll need to actually create the constructor for this class, because this is what injects in all the services that we're using. So yeah, that will give us access to the app config service and the device info service. So those are obviously the 2 key things that we need in order to be able to get the keys and secrets that we need for connecting to the provisioning, the DPS, and also to get some device information for creating the symmetric key. So we'll see that process shortly. So let me just create a local field to store that. So when the services get injected in, we will store these locally so that we have access to them throughout the application, throughout this class rather. And then let's also rename this to this, because this is an async method, so we should really follow a proper naming convention. So let's call this provision async. I like to try and follow proper.
You're a good guy.
Yeah.
Good man. Good man.
Exactly. And there we should be calling that. So this point, so at this point we're trying to get hold of the DPS endpoint, so that's storing that value. The DPS ID scope. So we should, at this point, it's probably worth showing you what the DPS ID scope is, because I'll just take you to the dashboard, so you can see
Azure dashboard.
Yay.
Yeah.
So you can already see here some funky graphs and stuff, but I'll just show you the DPS. So this will hopefully give you some context. And once again, I'm showing you some keys and values and stuff. But so this is the ID scope. So when you create a DPS service in the portal, which is just going to the portal and creating DPS. So if you just search for DPS, you can create one in the and we also have instructions for setting this up, by the way. So I should refer you to this, which Sweeky can share this link for.
We got you. Yep, we've got links up. Alex has got us. Shout out to Alex. He's the guy giving you all the links in the chat right now.
Awesome work, Blounty. Thank you. So as I said here, we have I've created a DPS to connect to. This is the ID scope. So this is the token that identifies this uniquely. And then also it's worth touching on this, which is you link your DPS to an instance of a hub. So I've created a hub called XT IoT Hub and literally it's just a case of adding, and then you select the hub that you wish to connect to, and that gives it the power to be able to orchestrate and add and provision new devices. So we'll look back at, cool. So that gives you a little bit of context. So let me switch back to Visual Studio. I have just one question. I have one question. I have so many questions today. I have one question. So I know creating IT Hub is super simple, because even I did that, and the tutorials are awesome on our MS documentation. For the DPS, you just followed the tutorials. Any other extra setup that you had to do? Just that's it, and grab the string values. Is that all? No, there's a little bit more. So there's we need to, in order to allow provisioning to work, you have to manage enrollment. So you have to create what's known as an enrollment group. So,
gotcha.
So you can.
I don't want to kill your flow. So
no.
Is this where you want to talk about this right now, or do you want to talk about it later on? Does it make sense? Now's as
good a time as any. Now's as good a time as any.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
It totally works. Yeah, we're good for time. Yeah. So there's two different ways you can tell the DPS service what devices you're going to allow to connect. You can either individually register, enroll devices, which depending on your needs, you may or may not wish to do this. But in our case, we want to allow any specific devices that have access to a symmetric key. So what you do is you create a group enrollment, and that will basically say that any device which has this symmetric key. So if it provides this, because I'll be using this value here, is used. You can use this primary key to connect to the DPS and basically authenticate yourself. So there are other ways you'd authenticate yourself. You would, for more secure, because this isn't the most secure, because clearly you're baking this key into the application, and there is the potential to reverse engineer it, and even potentially with string obfuscation. So if security is absolutely critical to you, then you'd want to use something like TPM, the Trusted Platform Module. But that isn't really available on mobile devices. So this is about as secure as you can get it on a mobile device.
Gotcha. We trust our teammates. We just gave it to our teammates. We kind of trust them. That's fine.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So yes, that's an important value though. So that we let's go back to Visual Studio again. So we've got the DPS endpoint, which I can now show you the value for that, because that's an important thing to appreciate, that literally every device that connects to DPS will hit this endpoint. So global, literally everywhere in the world. It's not, but it is. it's totally scalable, and it's uses geo. What's the term? It's available. It's broken up over all the geo locations, so it's
right. It picks the location closest to your device.
Exactly.
It's smart enough that way.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's go back to this. So yeah, we've got these three values with device ID. So that's the important value. So that uniquely identifies this specific device. In my case, I am literally just generating a GUID. You'll see during the demo why I'm doing this. I'm creating a unique value every time so that I can test. Every time I launch the application, there'll be a new device ID, which it registers against. And then it uses that device ID and the symmetric key to create a hashed version of that symmetric key. So I've created a helper here, which I should just show you the code for this. You can see it on GitHub. It literally just does some hashing, but that computes the specific value to use for connecting to the DPS service. So the final part of this process is actually registering. So in order to do that, you've got to create, there's a few important parts which we're using. I should point out that we're using the Azure Microsoft Azure Devices client, the Microsoft Azure Devices Provisioning client, and the Microsoft Azure Devices Provisioning Transport.http. So these three things we're using to connect to IoT Hub and do the provisioning process. So someone's saying something about semicolon, not semicolon.
Yeah, I think you're missing a bracket possibly.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, might be. Let's see. I'll just chuck one in there. That should be fine. We'll see what happens. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I just need to pull in all the usings for this. So anyone who doesn't know the shortcut, this is my lifesaver for demos. Is just a control period. So that just throws in all of the usings up there. And are they even sorted? They're not, are they? Oh, well, yeah. And yeah, so let's see. So we create the symmetric key. So this is a strong type that we need to create this security value, which we pass in. The transport handler. So yeah, notice I'm using the HTTP one. For demo purposes, I'm using that, but you can also use an MQTT and an AMQP for, depending on your needs. But in my case, due to firewall restrictions, HTTP is the only thing that will actually punch through my local firewall, so that's why I'm using HTTP. So then we use a factory method on the provisioning client, create, handily named. So that will create an instance of the provisioning device client, passing in the endpoint, ID scope, security, which is your symmetric key, encoded, and your transport profile. So with all of those, that will create your provisioning client, and then you're good to go. So you literally just call register async, and a few moments later, if that has worked, then you'll end up with an assigned hub. So you'll get a status, which will be status assigned. So that means the hub, you've done a handshake with DPS. It has approved you for access to IoT Hub, to this specific instance, and it will even tell you where to go to get it. So this is the endpoint to hit. So what I'm going to do at this stage, I think we're at a point where we can run, I believe, potentially. We will see. Maybe, maybe not. And I will see. No, not quite. So let's just fix. So what have we got here? So normal code paths. All right. So it's just let's complete this connection process. So I'll just finish this bit. Just this completes the actual connection process. So here we're doing a few other little things just to be able to connect to the hub. We are, now why have we got squigglies on this? That is interesting. I wonder why we've got squigglies. Private. What's it complaining about? Saying the await operator can only be, oh yeah, of course. Async on the method. Yep, thanks, Dean.
There you go.
Boom, and then, oh no, I don't want to make the method async. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Normally it's the first thing that comes up. You just do that, whatever it is. And And yeah, so now it's an async method. We can call that provision async. And I wonder actually if I just return, you know what, I'm just going to return true rather than completing the rest of this snippet. Return bool, yes, I want to return bool. Let's give it a value. And I'm just going to delete this for now because we are at a point where we can actually get something back from DPS. So let's do it. So I'm going to put a breakpoint on register async so you can see. And how are we doing for time?
We're okay on time.
Yeah, return bool.
We're good on time.
This is interesting. Yes. So that is interesting. Why have I got this issue? I saw this previously and I thought I only got this issue. I wonder if I need to do a rebuild. I'll try a rebuild.
I was going to suggest that you want a clean build, yeah.
Yeah. So I've had this pop up a couple of times. It's kind of random. If David's still watching, I was going to raise a bug on this.
He probably is, but I was also going to say we are also it's a live demo.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
The demo gods are clearly on our side. So, yeah. But this looks good.
So
At least
far,
the
so
build
good.
Build is good.
Yeah, did that actually? It did, didn't it? So yes, we'll see what happens. So I'm going to try now. By the way, I'm using hot restart.
Hot restart.
So if anyone doesn't know, that allows you to build and run iOS apps super quick directly. So with your iPhone connected directly. There we go. That worked.
You want to pull up your device? Yeah.
I'm going to just pull up my device. I just need to, there we go. Can you see that? You should be able to see that, hopefully. Oh, no, and we've got that same issue again.
No.
Okay, so I'm just going to try switching to another version. Yeah, okay. I think I know what, yeah. So I should be using the preview for the, because I'm using hot restart, so this is what's happening. This is, one of the demo gods beat me. I need to be using the preview version for hot restart to work on my iPhone. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, this version will work. So notice I'm still connected.
Yeah, look at us. We're doing all this work. We just want to make the demo look slick for everyone. So everyone enjoys seeing this
just showing off all the cool. There we go. So there it is. Hot restart working beautifully. On my iPhone.
It's such a good, beautiful app.
Yeah.
But that's it. Ben, this is it. Let's do it. Let's ship this.
Yeah, ship it. So, yeah, I mean, this is really beautiful. We can definitely improve on it later if there's time. But I just want to show you DPS working. So if I click on the start tracking, so that will then hit the ViewModels command. We've got a command on the ViewModel to say connect.
Do you have a breakpoint on it right now?
I had a breakpoint on my
the other
instance of Visual Studio. Yes, exactly. So we actually got further. So I'm going to just rerun that because that would have been really cool if I had a breakpoint on there. So
do you need to move over any of your other implementation of the service?
No, well, not yet. I'm literally have this pointing at the exact same source code, so you can see both versions, preview and stable. So I've got this fallback. Now the idea was going to start on preview, but yeah, it's all good.
It's all good.
So there we go. So I'm just rerunning, and now we have a breakpoint on register async.
Yeah. So this is an important point. So we're gonna get this working. We're gonna get DPS. All right, here we go.
There we go. So we hit the breakpoint, and we can see the results of the registration results. So you can see you get a bunch of values back. You get the device ID back. So you can see this is the ID of my device, as you can see on the device itself in the screenshot. And the key thing is that we have the hub. So that is the connected hub is returned. So this is literally the endpoint that we'll be connecting to, and it also has the status type assigned. So we know we are good at this point. We have an assigned hub, and so what we do is we use our app config service, and we will use that to store our endpoint for future use. So from that point on, rather than calling DPS every time, say, what's my endpoint again? Yeah, can you remind? Yeah. So we store that locally. And ideally what we'd be doing is within our app config service, we'd actually be storing that as a local setting. So you can see now we're failing to do the send, because when we start the tracking process, the ViewModel then starts a timer to send a message. So it's jumping a bit ahead of ourselves, so we need to now finish off actually connecting. Yeah,
amazing. I mean, amazing. It's connected now. That's all we have to do is just give it some data. Awesome.
Well, we have the endpoint. We're not quite connected yet, so this is the key thing to understand. So the connection process involves getting your endpoint and then connecting to that endpoint. So the provisioning process gets you that endpoint. We now need to complete the connection process.
The connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Understood.
Which is the second part, which I was went slightly ahead of myself. What am I doing? Why did that not work? And I can't tab apparently. There we go. Yes, that is why it's painful to watch me type. So we can see here we want to so the pattern is very similar to the DPS process, where we call a factory method to create an instance of the device client once you've given it a bunch of values. And so in this case, we have the device ID. It can use MQTT. So to the question, we can use MQTT, but in our at this layer we are using MQTT. Yes, good spot. Yeah, but for connecting to the DPS, we use HTTP. So yeah, you're right for that. So yes, we generate the symmetric key, generate a SAS token. So that, once again, we have a helper to do that, because there's a bunch involved in doing this. And this is literally just pulled off the awesome docs. So if someone wants to share the docs for creating a SAS token on IoT Hub, feel free. But here it is. It's literally just a verbatim copy of that. So I've just thrown it in a helper to generate it. But you can see it does some crazy stuff with dates and epochs. And yeah, someone much smarter than me created that. So, but it works, which is why I've just thrown it in a helper. So that returns that value, and then we pass it all to store a local copy of the device client that gets created. So let's throw that in a local field. So we now have a device client created and stored locally, so that we can do stuff with it at a later date. So yeah. As you can see, transport type set to MQTT WebSockets only. And we also want to create a connection status handler. So this is basically a callback method to, so did someone find, yep, generate SAS token, thanks Blouty. So yeah, we need to create a connection status change handler to handle the changes of status. So yes, let's do that. So that is literally just literally a callback method. It takes and it returns the status and the reason. So useful values. And let's store this, because we're not actually exposing the connection status reason. In my interface, I'm literally just exposing the last known connection status. So this is to give you an up. So let's create. Yeah, fine, we'll create a property for it. We won't actually publicly expose it through the interface because we don't really need it, but who knows, yeah. So, and then finally in this handler, we'll actually fire an event which does pass on that connection status. So let's just have a look at that enum. It's just 4 states: connected, disconnected, connected, disconnected, retrying, and disabled. So every time the status changes, it will be one of those 4 states. So nice. Let's try this again. So now we're at a point where we can actually connect to the hub, and we've got our connection status handler. So we can now rerun this, and through the magic of hot restart, it will just build the delta, but gives me enough time to have a sip of my drink.
Yes, of course. I know. I love talking. I can totally talk over the build process.
Yeah.
Keep making sounds.
Yeah.
Oh yay! Yay, Xamarin! Woohoo!
Xamarin Water. Yeah.
We have our Xamarin. I would turn the other way, but then you see coffee stains, and that's embarrassing. So I'm going to stick to this view.
Okay. So I'm now going to start tracking. Do I have my breakpoints on here? Yes, I do. So I can now. So we know this bit works. So I'm going to take this off, and we'll see how long it takes. So pressing F5 just then. It's a good 5 seconds or so to actually get the value back. So arguably you would not want to be, you'd want to only do this call when you absolutely need to. So when your status changes to unprovisioned, or if you don't have an endpoint. So you definitely want to be persisting this value rather than hitting the DPS every time you start the app. But in our case, as you can see, this ID has changed now. So now when I press F5, we will continue the connection. So we just ran through that, and then the callback fired, and we now have a status. What is the status? It is status connected. So, and the reason is, why did we connect? Because you wanted to. Connection is okay, so that's the reason.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a question on the connection status. So this is I think this is a good point to answer that. So we have a question on, is there a way to check the status of the device and restart if device is in rot or update device?
Yeah, well, that's why you have this callback, because the SDK basically uses callbacks to make sure that the consumer is aware of the up-to-date status. So although we locally cache the last known status, that should be pretty reliable to trigger off that, to trigger a new event, to trigger a new DPS provisioning or a reconnection. But it's worth noting that the SDK will automatically reconnect without you having to explicitly reconnect. So that's an important thing to note. So that if your connection dropped for whatever reason, you had poor connectivity, the SDK would automatically retry, which is why we have that as a status, connection status, disconnected, retrying. So it will fall back to that as soon as your status drops. So typically, that's one of the beauties of this. It's an always on connected state. So you need to think of that particular use case. Like if you have a need for a device to be always connected and always updating status, that kind of thing, which is why a location track is a really good kind of typical use case for this. Perhaps parcel tracking or a taxi tracking app, that kind of thing. You can think of.
Gotcha.
I don't know if anyone can think of any other uses of constantly polling Pokemon as
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go, exactly. Which is
that's what we're doing. Yep.
I'm sure that the devs who made Pokemon Go started with this.
Totally, 100%.
Send message. Right, there we go. Right, so we want to send the message. So.
It just wants to send a message. Second time.
Yeah.
It's annoyed at us for not letting it send a message.
Yeah. So where is my send message handler? I have lost my. There we go. Send message async. Have I? Did I throw that in? No, I'm currently looking at the ViewModel. I was thinking, hey, that's interesting. Yeah, so you can see here that this is the timer for actually sending the message, but we actually need to implement this method. So let's go ahead and do that. So what did I send event? So there's some interesting mixtures of terminology because the SDK and in many other parts of the SDK they're referred to as events, and often in the portal they're referred to as events. So
same thing for me. Yep. Even with the Raspberry Pi code, it's called send event. Yep. It's interesting terminology, exactly, because even when you if you use the VS Code Azure IoT Hub extension and you want to listen to the IoT Hub device, it also says listening in on event messages, and you're like, oh, okay, events.
Yep, exactly. So is that all of the bit? We also need to do disconnected, but we'll do that in a second because this is the this is where the fun starts, because we can actually show. You know what I need to show? Let's just have a quick interlude and show you the actual device enrollments, because I haven't actually showed you what you get in this. So
That's right.
Yeah, so here, this is every time I've been connecting, what I'm going to do, you can see all these devices currently are here registered. I'm going to just get rid of these. So these are now no longer allowed to connect. It's just on the fly.
Sorry.
That's just what could go wrong. There we go.
Nothing
all of those...
at all. Deleting resources, totally normal.
Let's just start from scratch. Yeah, I'm feeling lucky. So now we have no devices provisioned. So the next device that tries to connect will have to re-go through the provisioning service. But what I wanted to demonstrate is that you can actually see it appear here. So which is why I want to rerun the provisioning service. So what we will try and do is I will actually launch the app. Let's go back to Visual Studio and launch it from Visual Studio so we can hit the breakpoints and all that fun. I'm going to take off that handler, but we'll have one on the send message. So that'll relaunch.
We are relaunching the app. We're going to show everyone it works for real.
Yeah. Because up until here, I could be making this up. I could be totally making this up. That we're connecting to an Azure service, and that we're provisioning this device. So we can see here 2EEE 464. I'm going to actually add a message because we can see. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use the suggestion. So hey, I'm just leaving. There we go.
The best. It's a very informative message. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's just to show some content. So I've just pressed the start tracking button. So that will then re-provision the device. And as soon as we hit a breakpoint, which we have, I can then happily go back and refresh. Yes, I'll lose my changes because I haven't made any changes. There we go, 2EEE 64. So this is the device. We can actually see some
amazing.
Some. Here's an interesting thing to just briefly discuss. So this will also set the device twin on the device. Now, depending on your needs, you may or may not wish to use device twins, but they're a really useful way of configuring your set of IoT devices to have certain sets of properties. So you can then remotely configure things like the period between sending pings, for instance. You may want to change the frequency of sending messages. There's all sorts of things. So you can basically remotely set properties on your device using the device twin.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's a really cool feature. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat window. So we have, with regard to PKI, can we use TPM on server or even something from Azure like Key Vault to negotiate session?
Interesting question. Well, you can use Key Vault. You can use TPM because there's no mobile device, no Android, or certainly in the Xamarin world that has a TPM built in. I guess you could simulate it, but that probably defeats the whole purpose of TPM. So I'm guessing not. You'd have to, for that Uber security. As for using Key Vault, possibly that might be one way of at least sharing the symmetric key, so that isn't built into the device. So yeah, potentially that might be a really good in between using TPM and storing your keys locally. So yeah, but potentially Key Vault might be a good option there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good shout. So,
and Blounty just put in a link for a doc that talks about device guide and security. So awesome.
Sweet. So let's go back to him. We're doing okay for time. So here's the message.
So let me pose a question. So we are actually 1 hour in.
Yep. Oh, we need to have our break. We need to have a 5-minute break.
So do you think? Do you want to put in a 5-minute break now, or do you want to do a little bit more in the send message and then take a 5-minute break? I'll let you decide.
I'm just about to send the message, so we can either leave people on tenterhooks.
Let's send the message. And then we know for sure the sending message part is done. So when we come back, we can start making the app look presentable.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Cool. Let's do it. Okay. So I'm gonna let's send the message. So boom. That serializes it rather to a string, and Boom, F5 that. Oh, and because it's on a timer, we've been calling this multiple times. So if we now go to, so if we look at, I don't show the map at this point, so I need to go back to the dashboard so we can, I'll just move my iPhone out of the way. You can see here lots of registration attempts. This is whilst I've been demoing, and if I refresh this dashboard, you should see some device to cloud messages. Now, even better than that, well, actually, after the break, I'll show you the dashboard viewer. So there's actually a message. I can't remember what it's called now. The Service Bus Explorer. So I'll demonstrate the Service Bus Explorer to actually visualize these messages as they come in. So with that, let's have our 5-minute break. We'll be right. Yeah, we will be right back. Yeah, okay. So start tracking. Is that going to work? So I just want to make sure that...
Okay, it looks like we're back. We're back.
Oh.
Hi, everyone.
Are we back?
Hi.
it just took us straight back. Hello, everyone. There we go.
OBS decided when we come back now. The Terminator's happening.
Okay.
Ben's stream deck is controlling us. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oops.
That's all good. So...
Oops. Yeah, you're seeing my great screen right now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm looking at case studies because of the question.
Yeah,
look at that.
We have side-by-side talk. Yeah, so we're back.
We're back. You look at my case studies. It's amazing.
Yes, I had. That was a good moment. Now I just wanted to check before I switch.
No, we're back for real. If anyone in the stream thinks for real, we're back for real.
Oh, we are back for real. Thank you. All right. Okay. So in which case, let's go back to the code.
Would be a good idea at this point.
Right. Yeah. Here we go. So I've actually switched to Android during the break just to show you this is the same app. So I'm now using the
power of Xamarin.
Yep.
I wish all of the screen changes had like a music stinger to it, intro music.
Yeah, it does need it. I needed some whoosh sounds or something.
Yes.
But one of the things I really wanted to show was the magic of hot reload. There we go.
Oh, so yeah, hot. Look at that.
Yeah. So
pretty.
we can do all sorts of crazy stuff with the UI whilst it's running, and yeah, that looks totally awful. I'm not a designer, and I don't pretend to be. And when you see even my attempt at making this look pretty, it's kind of debatable, but it looks different. Anyway, what I wanted to show you was the Service Bus Explorer.
Yes.
Easy to me to say. So in order to, because I wanted to demonstrate the messages actually going through, because the way IoT Hub works is all the messages go through a super high bandwidth endpoint, the service bus. And then from that, you can then feed your data to enormous various endpoints that you want to. So you can then pass it on to analytics, which Sweeky will be demonstrating shortly, and any other endpoints. So you could put it in directly into storage, into Azure storage.
Oh yeah, yep.
All the Azure things. So I needed to show you how to connect to use the Service Bus Explorer to actually see your data hitting your IoT Hub in real time.
Yep.
I thought that'd be pretty cool.
It is actually pretty cool, yeah. Because if again, I'm all about self-praise today. If you caught the stream on Tuesday, I showed how to connect the Raspberry Pi to the IoT Hub, and I used the VS Code extension called IoT Hub, and that let me let me monitor the built-in endpoint the built-in endpoint for the device, and I could see the messages being sent over to IoT Hub. So that's one way to do it, but I think this is much more visual and much more cooler, because that's just like a console window that you're getting the
feedback
feedback
blinky light
into.
That was very visual, the blinky light.
I mean, I had a blinky light for sure, so yeah.
Which I don't have, but I do have this Service Bus Explorer to show. So I'm just entering this connection string, which for anyone who missed, I just pulled it out of here. So shared keys. So you go to shared access policies and connection string primary, and that will give you a connection string which allows you to then connect to the hub. So here it is. You should be able to see this. In fact, if I go to this view, that gives you a bit more view to see the content. And currently we don't see anything because we need to start. So this is now listening to events, and oh, there we go, loads of stuff coming in, because this is the whole, all of the events that have happened since I started demoing. So right
since
up
the
there,
beginning of time.
Yeah,
okay,
so
yes.
Boom, but it gives you some nice pretty graphs. And the cool thing is if I show you my device, we can see here. So let's do another, the only thing I have been trying to code. There we go.
This is great.
Amazing. So, in theory, that message, after a few seconds, if I am still tracking, will be visible. Here, yes, in this view. So you go to the events view, and currently we can see I'm connecting to my Pixel 3 XL. In fact, that's an older device that I was testing on. At this time, is this going to work?
Is it like a refresh? It took a couple of seconds for my messages to come in on Tuesday. So
yeah, it shouldn't do. Here we go. It's because I've not got these sorted by order. There we go. OnePlus, because I was thinking the 3XL. I'm not using the 3XL today. I'm using my OnePlus. And there we go. Status text.
Nice.
Look at that. How amazing is that? So
beautiful.
You can see these messages coming in every 5 seconds, and we have a bunch of metadata included in there. So that was from our iPhone earlier. Hey, I'm just leaving. You can see those messages, and they're all clean, I assure you. And all the messages from the team from when they were testing as well. So lots and lots, and this can handle huge amounts. It's massively scalable. So
yep, amazing. Yeah.
Service Bus Explorer. So amazing. So let's go back to the code. I think I'm almost done with the device client service. I'm wondering if there's any value in showing some more of the app architecture potentially.
I'm just looking at time. So we are at 10:10. We have like 50 minutes to go. I'm going to throw it to the chat. Does anyone want to see anything specific in the services? Actually, Ben, let's do this. I'm going to monitor the chat. Why don't you get started with the UI? Because the plan right now, you want to make the UI look better?
I have one last thing to finish on the service, which is just the disconnect, which is literally just the disconnect button. And then I can open to the chat to see if anyone's interested in digging any deeper in some of the other implementations. Otherwise, I'll show how we can, using the magic of hot reload, make this look beautiful. So, I'm just going to do another snippet, and then, as if by magic, I've just typed 5 lines of code, 5 beautiful lines of asynchronous magic. There we go. So all we're doing here is we're in our disconnect handler. We check if we have a device client already set. If we do, then we're going to call so there's an async method on the client itself to properly programmatically disconnect the connection. Then we want to dispose of the client and set it to null, so that if we want to re-establish a connection, we'll have to recreate it.
Of course.
Okay, so that is the service. So we literally, there's not a huge amount to it, but it does a whole heap of magic behind, thanks to...
Exactly, this is amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on to just playing around with the XAML. So I've shown you that hot reload's working for changing colors, but
yeah, let's make it look a little pretty. We don't have any questions as of yet on any more service related things. So yeah, let's make our let's continue world domination.
Yeah.
With something that looks nicer.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with Pancake View. If anyone hasn't heard
Pancake View.
It's an awesome little plugin extension NuGet library. Someone share that. Bounty is probably way ahead of me sharing a link to Pancake View.
Probably got it. I'm trying. He's going to beat me to it.
He's going to beat you to it. So the first thing I will do is let's just throw it in. And then we want to have the connection status. Now notice here that my connection status it's not resolving it. So what I can actually do is, because I'm using some other tools, so it should, yes. Thanks to, so I also use mfractor, which I'd highly recommend. Resolves some of the paper cuts. And one of them is being able to resolve properties from your view model. So this will literally IntelliSense the properties directly from ViewModel,
Yeah.
so you get them
Yep.
inserted as bindings. So very cool. And anything else?
Productivity tool. There we go.
Yeah.
I learned words today. Yeah.
Productivity tool, yes. So let's see if I save that. Now the fact that we're getting squigglies is a little bit concerning. Ambiguous match found. Why are we getting an ambiguous match? Interesting.
You're being too ambiguous.
How am I being ambiguous? I've added a label.
Do you wanna?
I'm gonna have to restart it. All right, okay. I mean,
I just want to say that maybe let's stop and rebuild.
fine. I'm sure. Yeah.
And then we take this, and then we rejoice when it all works.
There we go. So did I? Are you seeing my device? Yes, you are seeing my device. Good.
Yep. Ooh, pretty.
So
Nice.
it's already looking a bit prettier. So Xamarin IoT. I thought it was a good, strong name.
It's a great name.
It is a great name. So what else do we want to do? So let's throw in some actual pancake views. So here I'm going to throw in. We'll see how many of these actually work, because I'm throwing them into a stack layout. So below the title, I'm going to put in some of these items. So I need to also include some styles. So let's see, can I extend the resource dictionary? So some of the things I'm going a little bit off script to, because changing styles, adding styles to the dictionary, is it or is it not going to work? So if I save.
Oh, interesting. I actually don't know. I haven't tried this. I've seen Kim do it, but he usually first populates the resource dictionary.
So this definitely worked for me earlier, but here we go. What's the device that's been tried? It's Sweeky. Do you want to clarify to Dr. Argus?
Yep, I got it. Don't worry. Yes, I got it. So what?
Awesome.
Oh, so okay. So this is Azure IoT Hub with Xamarin. So the IoT Edge device that we're dealing with today is a mobile phone. So it's an Android or an iOS app. We're using Xamarin, which is a cross-platform SDK that lets you use .NET to write native iOS and Android apps. So just a quick recap on everything we did before our break. So in the first 1 hour, we've got this Xamarin app, our iOS app and Android app. We've got it connected to IoT Hub already. Got it auto provisioning using device provisioning services. So we have this device, which is a mobile device again, iOS or Android. We've got it registered on the IoT Hub. It's connected to IoT Hub right now, sending messages to IoT Hub. And what we're doing right now is we're showing some things in the Xamarin framework itself, just a little bit on the Xamarin framework to show you how powerful the tool is to set up a client app which talks to IoT Hub.
Exactly. Thanks, Sweeky. So I'm just going to add another pancake view, which is, let's see, this view here. Actually, before I do that, I think this is hopefully this works. So if I put this down, so I'm adding a box view.
Box view.
Let's just show, why would you want to possibly add a box view? And this is, okay, so I've just restarted again. What I've now done is I've changed hot reload to do a full screen, because I think I use the more aggressive hot reload, which does it for deltas, which should work in the latest version, but it could be an issue with my Android. So anyway, we can see here I've just thrown in a box view which literally just outputs a line, but with behaviors I can change. There we go. So is that going to update? So currently you don't see anything happening, but if I start tracking, so actually start the app running and sending messages, if the demo gods are going to serve me the animated state, it will animate the state of the progress bar. And yeah, the demo gods are not in my favor today. They're not. Sad times. That's okay. So I'll just try restarting it just to show the coolness of using behaviors to animate views. Just rebuild. What does that? Is that complaining? Cannot set the content of the box view as it doesn't have a content property. Really? Ah, that was a silly thing. So, okay, so it may not have been. Yes, I did a really silly thing. I put a box view within a box view, and a box view is not a content. It does not contain content, so you can't nest. You can't nest box views directly. So you'd have to put them in a grid, or you'd have to lay them out in some other way. Right. So if I try this again, start tracking. Can you? Yeah, you can still see my device. There we go. So look at that. I don't know how smooth that will be on the stream, but you can see here by literally just having a binding to the isBusy state. So if the box view, if the status of the view model is busy, is true, the box view will be visible. But we're also adding an animated progress behavior. So that is this class here. Super simple. It's just a behavior which acts on any view, and all it does is it basically mucks about with the translation and scale of the object. So it will do this using the built-in animation framework in Xamarin Forms. So it does scale to, it does translate to, bouncing from side to side. How cool is that?
Nice, nice. The unsung hero, the humble box view.
So I'm conscious of time because we need to hand over to you.
We're good.
Yeah?
I'll let you know if we're running too late on it. Yeah, my section is amazing, but doesn't take too much of time, which is awesome. So yeah, go ahead. I'd say keep working on this. Yeah.
All right, cool. So you can see that's so yeah, behaviors are definitely an unsung hero in Xamarin Forms. They can be used to do some super cool things in Forms. And one of the things I really like is it avoids having code in your code behind. So I'm always very careful about absolutely minimizing what you have in your code behind. So there's various schools of thought about to what degree you'd want to have your any code in code behind. But I believe you should limit it to just visual code. So visual code handling. In this case, there'd be no way for your code behind to know the state of, the busy state of your app without then connecting to the view model. And so I prefer to have something which, using behaviors, you can then have that, you can abstract that away. So yeah, you could totally use shapes. So now using 4.7,
yeah,
you could totally use shapes and do some even more funky stuff. So let's now replace that whole view, so that whole box view area, with this. So I'm just building up the content. Now, will this hot reload? Yay! So that hot
beautiful.
Reload. So I'm now going to take out these device IDs because that's taking up too much space. But we are now, so this is now hot reloading beautifully. I need to stop tracking though, so that's an interesting one. So now we're retracking and it's bouncing around. And so we now got, you can see I'm in Wiltshire. It's a lovely, lovely county in the south of England. It's also where the spire, there's quite a famous Wiltshire cathedral, some of you may have heard of.
Wow, I'm learning about it today for the first time. This is great.
Yeah, it's very popular apparently, especially in Russia. So I've just done another change that you can see here. I've changed the, there we go. So this is one of the coolest things that I can't believe I nearly forgot to demonstrate. So currently we're looking at just seeing lats and longs, just plain text. But there we go. With the magic of hot reload, I've just thrown in a map, and we're able to see my location actually on the map. So you can see Bath and Bristol and Swindon, and zoom out, we can see the location on my map.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you just magically popped in a map in there? Did you have to dance around on one foot, pray to some gods to get this to work? How did that come in so quickly?
Yeah, exactly. So all that required is using a Forms NuGet package. So we actually have built-in support for both. And bear in mind, this is using the native Google's map control. So both on Android and iOS, we're using the native controls, so it's super optimized and looks beautiful and super performant. In this case, we are pulling in the dependencies. So if we look at my packages, we can see. No, you can't see my packages because my device is in the way.
Yeah, the device is here.
Now you can with the magic of OBS. You can see my camera. You can see my dependencies, and you can see I'm pulling in forms.maps. So that gives you access to this. There's a few steps required in order to configure, particularly on Android. There's a little bit of there's a few hoops to jump around to allow you to actually connect and use this API. So this is because this is using the native API. There's no getting around those hoops. You still have to create an account, and if someone can share
on it. Yep.
But it's very straightforward. There's some docs on it on the Xamarin side. Some awesome Xamarin
We have amazing docs on it. Yeah. So just for those who are just like sort of coming in now, just sort of quick recap. You said all these words about native and Xamarin. Just let's sum it up in like 4 or 5 lines on the advantage and the power that Xamarin and .NET is offering you.
Do you want to show your slide? Can I?
Do I have a slide on this?
You have a slide on the well. You've got
my magic of .NET. I have a magic on .NET slide.
There we go. That'll do.
Yeah, so this will do. So just this is a bit detour, but we just want to highlight the fact that if you have a client-side application like something like what we're doing right now, we pulled in a map, and a map is traditionally something that's native to each platform. So on Google, you'd use Google Map component, and on Apple, you use the Apple it's MapKit, if I'm remembering it right. So, but what we wanted to highlight is how well the .NET ecosystem works with each other, right? So we are using Xamarin, which provides you a shared a shared wrapper layer, which is just called a map component. And using that, you can actually just instantly pull in this component into your shared code and do all of the setup. And like Ben mentioned, and Launty just put a link to how to get do. So there's a little bit of native, because each platform has its own requirements. So there's a little bit of native setup, but it's mostly just like going and grabbing a connection string, similar to what we did for IoT Hub. So you just do those native layer setup, but for the most part, you have a shared C# API that sort of lets you do everything magical in for a map. So yeah, just like a small detour, but we just wanted to highlight how cool and awesome Xamarin is. Yay, Xamarin!
Yay! Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Sweeky. So if we switch back to my device, I'm just going to finish off this UI. So it's looking okay, but it could definitely do with something more to spice it up. So we've got this beautiful map, but what I'm actually going to do, because I've got this all wrapped in a stack layout, I'm actually going to replace all this with a flex layout. And wrap that in a pancake view.
So the cool kids say now, the cool kids call it flexing. We are literally flexing.
The cool kids, and we are the cool kids.
Yes.
Yes. And I nearly didn't have. There we go. And with the magic of hot reload, we have a beautiful gradient.
Beautiful.
And I can. I've changed the button so we can see here. We're now using pancake views. And what have I broken? What's happened? Cannot access a dispose object. There we go. Interesting. So it looks like whilst hot reload was reloading the UI, I did a disconnect, I think, potentially. I'm going to have to reload that. Oh well. So you saw it.
I believe
totally
you.
saw it. Yeah. Before I broke it.
You didn't break it. It's a feature. That's how it works.
Yeah.
We don't use that word here.
There we go. So we've got that magical animated box view. There's one other thing I should mention is the map view. By default, it doesn't move to your current location. So although it can show your current location, you'll see that when you start up your version of an app which has that control, it will be focused on Rome. And don't ask me why Rome. I guess the guy who wrote the control lives in Rome or something. So
I want to say a very bad joke, but I'll dedicate this to Mike Parker, because what happens in Rome stays in Rome.
Amazing.
So, I hope I did Mike Parker proud.
Yeah,
yes.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so that's a Mike Parker joke and a half. So how do you get around that? So there's, whilst also maintaining this thing that I'm obsessed with, which is to keep the separation of concerns and not having coding your code behind, which is doing funky stuff with your view models. So the way I did it is I extended the tracking map view, and I'm able to use the IOC service. So I'm actually able to inject in the geolocation service and make use of the event that gets fired. So there's this event location update handler gets fired every time the location changes. So we have in our service, our core service, the geolocation service. It fires a location update event every time one is calculated. So the beauty of that is that you can have controls which listen to that notification and respond to it. So in this case, every time the location update fires, we use that to do this. So this is the call that you need to make on the map view itself. You need to create a map span, and then you need to invoke move to region. So that will then move your current position, whatever you're zoomed over, to a certain region. You can also specify the distance and the height, all that kind of stuff. So this is basically a custom control, just slightly extending the provided map view. Now, I'd be tempted to see if I can get this as a PR, because I think this would be useful functionality to support something like this.
Yeah.
But take it from there.
That's we've got someone's judging us on animation. That's a beautiful animation. It's beautiful. It's weird and amazing.
Fair enough, Lachlan. You wouldn't believe some of the iterations I went through with that animation.
We are considering it. Maybe just for Lachlan, we're going to put in a PR Lachlan with a much more smooth animation that Ben worked on. It's gorgeous. That animation is actually amazing.
You know what? One thing I should demonstrate, and I haven't actually tried this, but I'm pretty sure this will work, is the beauty of behaviors is you can apply them to any control which supports behaviors. So literally anything in this view. So let's say, how about the...
Oh dear. Are you going to put it on the map? Are you going to put it on...
I'm going to do it on the title text. So
the title text. Okay.
On the title text. So here we have, but it's obviously a label behavior. So label behaviors. And then we want to, there we go. So if I just save this, I have no idea if this will work. Is it going to work, or is it going to... so I need to... that's interesting. So it looks like somehow my ViewModel state gets reset. So it's currently not... the busy state gets reset. So that's...
Reset, yeah.
So the busy state gets reset, and I think this is what causes... interesting, okay. What's happening there? And I did that on the wrong control, because that wasn't the title, was it? That was the Xamarin IoT... Did that work? No, it didn't work, did it? Why would that be? It's probably because horizontal, one of these is stretching it. So it just doesn't have room to move around, I'm guessing. If I set the width. So I'm completely, you have to rein me in a minute. Sweeky, because I'm totally.
I'm letting you. I'm letting you go. I'm giving you a couple of minutes. I low key want to see this myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Try it, please. Try it.
I'm going to try it on the map view just for the hell of it, because see what happens. Because literally any view. So any.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said do it on the map.
Okay, let's do it on the map.
If it works on the map. If not, we're gonna step away and look at some Azure things.
So where's my map control? Here's the map control. So this, why you'd want to do this, I have no idea, but you can.
You can.
Well,
no one needs to know why. You can do it. We want to show you can.
I believe. Let's see what happens. What's going to happen? So obviously the status seems to stop, and I'm going to press start again. And okay, damn. Okay. Some reason that's not working.
Ah, would have been funny. It would have been so funny if that would have.
It would have been. Yeah, it would have been.
It would have been amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure there are definitely. Boo! I know. Yes, I'm kind of gutted about that because that would have been a good.
Actually, would have given everyone a headache. Also, potentially, I don't know, a bouncy map. How well that would fly.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, you could do that entire content. Last one. Okay, this is the last time, honestly, because I know I'm conscious of time.
Yes, you can have one last attempt.
Last attempt. I'm going to do it on the whole page. I've literally
This is not good. I'm going to say this. This is not going to. I don't know about this one.
It's not end well. No.
I supported you all this while. This is the one I am slightly not sure about.
It's a view. It is definitely a view. So if if anybody can see what I'm potentially doing, why this shouldn't work, why? I mean, I know why it shouldn't. Why no one should even try it, but and no, that's not what I want to do.
I'm still concerned why we are trying this now.
Yeah, because you can. Look,
you want to remove resources, right? Yeah, you need to view base.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. So. Literally no idea what's going to happen, but just for the hell of it, let's see what's going to happen. Blountie's crying, so.
Yeah, I mean, did we not think he was always going to cry? He never likes it when we do this.
Yeah, just completely derailing the show.
Hey, I mean, we're yeah, exactly what Lachlan said. Just because we can, we should. We owe it to everyone watching. So they don't repeat these mistakes. Oh no, we broke the app.
Yeah, I even broke in Hot Reload. Hot Reload has said no, you can't do this. You shouldn't, and I'm not allowing it. And
yeah, just like stop being weird.
Stop being weird. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Okay, so on that note, Sophie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yes, you can hand it over to me.
Yeah,
I can hand it over to me.
Beautiful transition. So what are we going to talk about now?
Okay, so we've quick recap for those who's just joining us. Maybe I should pull this up. This is the one. Okay, so we've completed the Xamarin app. We've made sure this is talking to Azure IoT Hub. We've got it talking to device provisioning. So the left half of the project for today is basically complete. If you want to look at it visually, we started with this amazing looking app. We made it look gorgeous. And so only thing left now is let's see what we can do with the data that's coming through to, we're sending all of these messages with latitude and longitude to Azure IoT Hub right now. And it's latitude and longitude. We've got values for a map. Why not take them and let's put them on a map for real now? So, so this is our GitHub. If anybody was following us, you can follow us here. But I'm going to go to my dashboard. Okay, so this is the dashboard. This is where our resources are. So this is the Xamarin IoT Hub that Ben had just already created. This is the provisioning service. For this half of the demo, I mean not this half, but this section of the demo, it's all the steps that I'll be using are actually highlighted in this part over here that says setting up Power BI dashboard. And I'm going to say it right up front. This is not something complicated. I'm not trying to build a app service that has a map and does all this stuff. All I'm using is Power BI. And the best part about the whole process is there is a doc that literally walks you through how to do this from start to end. So what I like to do in all my streams is I like to follow docs and show you how I just listen to what the docs say, and then everything works just fine. So basically, I've done every single step that's in here and created. So essentially, all you'll be doing. So I'm going to do a side by side. So I'm going to open up the doc over here. I'm going to have our. No, this is our dashboard, right? So in your IoT Hub, right? So we were talking about the built-in endpoints and stuff. So I am going to follow everything they say. So in built-in endpoints, what you basically have to do is it's in under consumer groups, there's the default endpoint, and the default endpoint, like what we were showing off in service bus. And if you use the Visual Studio Code, so let me see if I can actually open this up and not mess everything. So this is actually my demo from Tuesday. But if you have the Azure IoT Hub extension set up, and if it is not annoyed with me, which it is actually currently very annoyed with me, once you see your devices and you select a device and you select and you listen into an endpoint, so it basically allows, this is the default endpoint that you listen to. That's the one built in over here. So what we're doing over here is actually we're just creating a new one that we're going to connect specifically to Stream Analytics, right? So I created one here. It's called my map points group. And that's it. So on the IoT Hub site, to make it talk to Stream Analytics, a question could come up: why am I using Stream Analytics? I could use any other sort of connection to get this to work with IoT Hub, but yep. So you could actually connect it multiple different ways. So like I said, on Tuesday, we actually explored on how to get a triggered based, reaction from your data. So I actually hooked this up to a logic app. So this is so we did remote monitoring and sent out a notification on Twitter from a button that I was pressing on my Raspberry Pi. So you can also have the Xamarin app or your mobile app, whatever your client app is, you can connect it to a logic app. But today we're doing it with Power BI just because it'll be fun. And we want to learn new things. Excellent. So once you have this consumer setup, that's it. You don't have to mess around with the IoT Hub anymore. Then you'd go in, you'd create a new resource, create, whoops, I'm not customizing my dashboard. I am trying to create a new resource. But anyways, so next up would be to create the Stream Analytics job, right? So I already have it created, but on the right, I'm sort of just scrolling through the docs, but in it, basically all you're doing is you're basically just creating a Stream Analytics job, and you'll notice I've called it the exact same thing because I am very original with my naming. But the most important thing is, this is the point where I kind of got this is where I made a mistake first off. So I wanted to highlight this to everyone. So when setting up the input and output settings, don't be me and please name them correctly. Somehow I named my first attempt at this naming it. I named it something else and I completely forgot what it was. But the way it works is you create an input stream, right? And when you set up the input stream, you give it a name, you set up the policy. It's already created. My job is already running right now because this is a constant stream. But if you are curious on what is going on, it's basically just everything that's set up over here, just giving it a point. You're giving it an endpoint name. You're giving it an access policy. And you're pointing it to the consumer group. And the consumer group is basically the endpoint that we created on IoT Hub. So you're just letting it know that, hey, this is where my input, my stream. These things smartly. Please name them smartly. So call this silence.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what's happening.
Sorry, yeah, I switched to full screen because our heads were covering it. So I literally
don't worry about it.
Cut off your audio slightly for a moment.
I see. Well, I'm back now, friends. Yep. I'm back. Don't worry about it. Yep. So so like I was saying, name your resources correctly. So call the input, call the output. So you don't spend 10 minutes trying to figure out why no map points are appearing. But in the output, you basically get to set up just again similar sort of process. You give it a data set name, you give it a name, of course, give it a data set name, give it a table name, right? And everything else you just leave it as default. So there's not a lot complicated setup in this section. I wish I was doing something as cool as Ben, but it's not as cool as that. So literally all you did so far was you set up an input, set up an output in Stream Analytics, and the input is talking to the custom endpoint you create on IoT Hub. And for your output, we're basically creating a table with the data set of the points. So that's all of the latitude, longitude message data that's coming in. We're going to create a table out of it, give it a name, and give the data set a name and give the table a name. That's literally it. So the next part is what is called, we're going to set up a query, and this is where the naming is important because this is the mistake I made. So if I'm going to full screen my thing now. So if you look here, so this is a table query which is similar to a SQL query, which is, again, we are doing the most simple use case possible. I am literally just as per the tutorial also, all it does is it literally just takes all of the input values. So from the input onto our output table. So this is where, if you name it smarter, you will not make mistakes like I did. But you go from input, you go into output, and you select all the different values. And if you notice below, it's really smart. And if there's already data in the IoT Hub, so which is Ben's a 1+ that he was testing with right now, the data is already starting to populate. So you can look at exactly what your table is looking like. And if your requirements need you to have a much more specific query for this table that's being populated, you don't want it to be grabbing every single value, you can totally go ahead and edit it, add your query statements to make it as specific as needed, because this is the data that gets fed into your Power BI dashboard. So at this point is where you have a lot of flexibility. And like I said, if you, based on what kind of Power BI dashboard you're creating, you can control your output value, this output table, and then use the values as required in Power BI. So for the purposes of this demo, we're just copying the whole thing over. So it's got the device model, we've got the device name. This is all the information that Ben is basically sending over to IoT Hub, and it's just sort of populating it in a nice looking table. And the schema is from the data type that we provided. So important values for us right now is basically the latitude, the longitude, and I have the message coming in at some point. I hook it up to a status, so we'll look at that in Power BI. But that's it. So this is all that you have to set up in this stage. After this point, we directly hook this up to Power BI. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated at all. So I'm going to go back to the great tutorial, because the power of all the world is in tutorials, right? So so then you're going to use Power BI. If you don't have a Power BI account at this point, this is where you create an account. It's for free. You can do it. All of the services that we're demoing today are all on the free tier or the free levels. So you shouldn't need to have to pay for any of this. You just have to create free accounts. Once you're in Power BI, so I'm going to go over to our Power BI. So this is what the completed thing looks like. But let's go look at our workspace. So data sets. So this is the data set that you will see this data set once you make the connection, right? So when you come in here, it says go to data set. If you look here, you will see this is the map points data set. So this is that table that I showed to you in this step over here. This is the data set that I'm talking about. So this is already pulling in that value. It's living in this data set for me automatically. I didn't have to do anything complicated to get it started. The next thing I did was, once the data set is in Power BI, now I can make my report out of it. So the report I decided to make was the map that you saw. So I'm going to go into reports and show you how exactly the map works. So I'm going to hit edit report. So usually when you come into the stage, you see like an empty canvas, right? And then you can look at all the different fields. So there's two different kinds of maps. There's actually a filled map, and then there is the ArcGIS map for Power BI. If you're curious about what their documentation looks like, they have a page right here. It's in the README, and the power of Bounty Bot will probably post the link for you in a couple of minutes over there. But it'll They have nice little screenshots, and I just looked at the screenshots, and I populated the Power BI dashboard. So again, I wish I was doing some fancy rocket science, but I am not. What I am doing is I inserted this map. If you see over here on the right, Power BI, wait, I'm going to zoom in a bit. Can I zoom in some? I can zoom in some more. Yes. Okay. So on the right, it actually populates that same table that came in from Stream Analytics job. You can see all of those fields that I was talking about. So I grab in the latitude and longitude, I plug them into the properties field. So this section at the bottom here, so when you click on a component that you have on your canvas, it loads in the properties for it. So I pulled in the latitude where it said latitude, longitude where it said longitude. And I pulled in the status text because I thought it'd be fun to see if you could pull out some status. And that's it. So Stream Analytics is a constantly running job. It's always running in the background. So it is it's always populating, like it's constantly populating is basically what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go back to the view if I know how to get back to the view. Hold on, I think if I hit save, it lets me go back. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a bit because all the buttons look very different in this view. So I'm going to close this. I am going to go to don't save. I'm just going to go back to the view because I want to see. So once you have that ready, what we did was prior to this demo, we actually distributed the app that you just that Ben just built. We distributed a version of that app to our coworkers. So Blounty, who's Blounty bot. We have Dean. We have our coworkers all over the world. So we shared it with them, and those are the dots that you're seeing. So this is me. This was me in San Francisco. We have Blounty and Alexi who were up here, and you can see the message value that you set is what's being populated in the status view. So we have Dean, if I don't know if Dean is still there, but look, he put his name in a status message because he's so much more smarter than I am. My status messages were sitting and some other bizarre things, but that's Dean. He's hanging out over there. I don't want to zoom in too much, but my mouse, okay. So this is Ben. I should probably refresh this table. Let's refresh it. Let's refresh our view. Okay, so I want to see if I can get Ben's. Nope, I'm populating some old messages, Ben, but it looks like I might have some. But anyways, idea being, that's what I want to show is you can populate a map with live data coming in. Oh no, my my window has frozen. Amazing. Yes, that's a fun part of dealing with maps. Okay, we're back. Okay. Good. So anyways, what I wanted to show off was, so these are the latitude and longitude values that we are pulling in from the client device, sending it up to IoT Hub, setting up a job in Stream Analytics to stream the data to us in the form of a table. And we are now, Ben does have 5,000 reports, that's right. And so, so it went from the phone to IoT Hub, from IoT Hub to Stream Analytics. And like I said, Stream Analytics is a constantly running job. So it's always posting data to the Power BI dashboard. And and that's it. So our demo goes from start to end. And those are the slides that we had that promised that we'd go from the mobile app to a Power BI dashboard. This is really simple. This is like a very simple user case. We are using it to track our coworkers. You can use it to track parcels. You can, like Ben and I were thinking, this could be a poor person's Pokemon Go, which I thought was a solid idea for this. So anyone have any other questions? This is kind of the end of our demo, actually. We don't have anything else to share. I wish I had more things.
One very quick thing we could show is we can actually, so I've currently been sending updates during your talk, and you can see I'm currently have the message, Ben, well, I just did a random one. Not sure how to code. So if you can show filters, I don't know if you've seen, but that's a really useful thing to do in the Power BI dashboard. So if we switch you back to...
Yep. So what do you want me to filter for?
So if you just filter on code or something that, one of the words that we've done.
Hi, Ben. The only thing I have is...
There we go.
I have a couple of points coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Chippenham.
The only thing I have been trying to code, is that the message I'm looking for?
That's literally, yes. Hi, Ben. Yes. The only thing I'm trying to code. That was the message we did earlier. So there we go. You can use filters, and so you can filter for very specific messages on that Power BI dashboard. So yeah, useful thing, I thought.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks. Yeah, I totally forgot about this one. I knew there was a reason I connected it to the status message. I couldn't remember why. This is why teamwork makes the work work. Exactly. I think that's what the line is. If not, forgive me and forgive all the kids whose rhyme I just destroyed right now. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for all joining, guys. Unless there's any other questions, feel free to follow us on Twitter and Twitch. I'm sure we'll be doing more of these in the future. So I'm Ben BTG on Twitter and Sweekriti S.
Yeah, my Twitter is so hard. I did just a shorter version. Yeah. So I was just about to say the tutorial code samples, the working code. The README on GitHub has all of the links, all of the tutorials that we followed, including this Power BI one that I used. We've got it all shared over there. We've got, if you're curious to see, we've got GitHub Actions in there if someone is curious about continuous integration. We're gonna push in a small code update to make the animation look pretty. That's just one task that we thought we'd do post-stream. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to open an issue on that, and we'll try and get those answered for you.
PRs for the Xamarin app, I'm sure.
Yeah, you want to fix this for us, please? Totally. Yeah,
come up with some better progress animations, maybe.
What have you? If someone can teach me to make a much more fancier Power BI dashboard, I am down for it. That would be a cool one to do. But yeah, the power is yours. We shared all of the links with you. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I'll wish you all goodbye.